The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Now, I've taken a couple of episodes this past month of the Broadcasters Podcast to talk about movies and where things have gone. Number one, with the summer movie season being over, and now we're in the fall movie season with a lot of variable choices of movies, with not many superhero movies to work off of because of some of the DC movies being pushed back, and also seeing that Marvel only has one more movie left to go and push out there. So what we have right now is a real conundrum when it comes to movies that are coming out, and a focus on what is being put out there. And this is also consisting of streaming as well, of what movies are coming out on streaming that are interesting. Okay, we got just a small variable of horror movies coming out soon. You've had movies like The Woman King have come out, which are very much, women-centric, even though there's a lot of controversy behind the movie. And then we're getting two movies coming out that are rom-coms. Your traditional romantic comedies are coming back, but they are not your traditional in terms of it's a man and woman. We're getting now two movies back-to-back that will be with the lead characters being gay. So Billy Eichner has the leading role in the movie called Bros that's coming out this weekend. And I believe the following weekend is a movie called Spoiler Alert, and that's Jim Parsons, the former Sheldon Cooper of Big Bang Theory fame, who's going to be in that movie. So we got all that coming up now. And there are many movies that have been coming out which have a lot of controversy behind them. We're going to talk about those. When you have the creator first society right now of the countercult and all the things that are being done with YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all, it's all different. And then here, you look at the mainstream content that's out there, your mainstream culture, where you know that music has been hit a lot by, the control that you have, where social media has to be the fuel as an artist to get your music pushed by a label or to get your music pushed out in general. When you look at television, we know that there's been a large fight where your traditional outlets of viewing television are struggling. There are no scripted or regular TV shows outside of sports that are pulling over 10 million viewers. It's not possible. I think only one show right now, if anything, is 60 Minutes, and I think it's immediately after football, might pull 7 million viewers, 8 million viewers total. Otherwise, no. Nobody else is doing that. When you look at movies, we know that they're struggling right now to put movies out. They're going to stand out. Movies are going to be outside of the normal gamut. Like, we're not seeing a lot of critically acclaimed movies. We're not seeing a lot of movies that are just standing out that are independents that are going to get a chance to go ahead and be pushed up. There's just not much out there. And when you see a lot of movies being brought back, their anniversary showings or this and that, like that can only fill up so many spots. And then the movies that do come out, they're getting fueled by controversy. The last couple of movies that have come out in the weekend box office, right? I mean, except for a few weeks ago when Top Gun Maverick retook the top spot of the box office charts, right? And then you look at what else we have that was out recently that might have made a difference. Like, there hasn't been much. When I think about what movies have been brought out that could have done well. Remember, the start of the month really was tough. If I look at the movies that came out in theaters in 2022 in September, the movie Barbarian did not do well. See How They Run, which didn't really get much of a play, and I still can't believe it's still in theaters right now. And then we have several movies that have come out this month that are either getting panned badly or they're getting criticized heavily. So the movies we're going to talk about tonight, that we're going to focus on each of them, is in no particular order. Blonde, the new Ana de Armas vehicle, which she's playing in a fictional biopic on the life and times of Marilyn Monroe. You have Amsterdam, which is a like a dark comedy with a fully fledged all-star cast. And David Russell at the helm of director, who's put out some great movies out there, American Hustle, Silver Linings Playbook, among others. And then you have The Woman King, which was the Viola Davis, Lashana Lynch vehicle that came out, and I watched that. I liked it. But without its own controversy. And Don't Worry, Darling, which came out this past weekend. I didn't get to go see it. I didn't bother. But keep it in mind, too, that all these movies are coming out, and the controversy that came in with them, they're not getting their budget back. Do you understand? They're not making back their budget. Like, I mean, I know that with, let's see, Woman King had a production budget of $50 million, and it only made $19 million so far in the first week. And I haven't looked at what they've done since. And if I look at what Olivia Wilde did with Don't Worry, Darling, $35 million, only made $19 million. Also struggles. But either which way, they might not have made a considerable amount back off the budget, but they're still considered successes because they're number one in the box office. Against what? Like, what are they up against? And then the other controversy you have will be with the likes of Blonde, which is not in theaters, as far as I know, but is getting blasted for the content. First of all, it's an NC-17 movie, and justifiably, because I haven't seen the movie yet, but there's so many people that have gone on TikTok especially, criticizing this movie after they reviewed it, watching it as it came out, as I recorded this show, September 28th. And I'm looking and I'm like, man, everybody's going after this, and they're saying it's basically a porn. Some kind of a posh, glamorous looking pornography. Okay. But that's how they feel things are. And so they're struggling right now to try to keep some movies out there that you don't have that normal superhero audience that's always going to go to these movies. Because I've seen that. I've struggled to see certain movies that get an audience. Woman King was the movie that I saw this past month that did get a little bit of an audience. Like, I could see it was an audience there. Maybe about a third to like a fourth of the theater was full in the RPX, which is the bigger screen. Granted, it was the last showing at 10:25, but I thought people would still show up for that anyway. But it could have done better. And so let me look at a couple of things. If we look at the chart so far and what they've done, if we just look at the last week's chart, last weekend, and the box office. So right now, Don't Worry, Darling, at the moment, it has pulled in $35 million worldwide. Again, $35 million budget. So it's going to break even already now. But that doesn't take away all the marketing that was put into this and how much was being put all after the fact. It's going to make it back, but it's not going to like break bank. That's not going to happen. Then Woman King has pulled in $36 million as of last week. And so far, overall, $40 million for domestic and international. And we know there's a lot of criticism besides that, criticism behind that, right? And then we look at whatever else, right? Amsterdam hasn't come out yet. It will come out in 2 weeks. We're actually next week. And then we have various movies that came out that are been around since the summer and continue to make money. When you look at Avatar coming back for its anniversary running to get people to get caught up in the Avatar again, and that re-listing of the movie made $10 million on its own. Look at that. Barbarian, $4 million this week, $28 million total for them, for the gross. Then see how they run, which has been out for 2 weeks. Pearl, which has been out for 2 weeks. Bullet Train, which has already been out for 8 weeks, is pretty much held over. DC League of Super Pets. Top Gun Maverick is still playing in theaters 18 weeks later. Minions: The Rise of Gru could also be being played in certain theaters as well. But that's where we're at. Remember Beast at the start of the month? Or actually at the end of August? $31 million. And I'm trying to figure out what was the amount of money they made off of that budget. Like, what was the budget on that? $58 million right there. but I want to know what the budget was on the movie. I mean, they had to go to an African set. I don't know how much it was, but let's see. Budget came out to be $36 million. So they're going to do okay. Idris Elba will lead this movie and will come out of it all right. But like I said, you look at the rest of that schedule for the movies, it's struggling badly. So as we look, Bros, Good House, and Smile all come out this weekend. One horror, one rom-com, and like another movie that's like kind of like the older 50-plus audience, the senior citizen romantic kind of feel to it. Then after that, Amsterdam and La La Crocodile October 7th are their wide releases. Halloween Ends comes out October 14th, which should do very well. Black Adam and Ticket to Paradise, George Clooney and Julia Roberts leading up in Ticket to Paradise, and Dwayne Rock Johnson and Black Adam on October 21st. Pray for the Devil. I've seen plenty of trailers for this, for the whole exorcism type of feel. Then One Piece film Red. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Is that the same thing as the... Oh, yes, it is the same as the anime. I didn't even know they were doing a film, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go watch that myself. Who knows? If it's on theaters, I might just go catch it. A Black Panther Wakanda Forever comes out November 11th. And there's also another movie that's being expanded to wide release called Armageddon Time. And Robert De Niro, Oscar Isaac, Donald Sutherland, Anne Hathaway, Kate Blanchett are all part of this. Interesting. I don't know much more of the movie than it's already showing right here. Jeremy Strong's in it. Jessica Chastain's in it. Pretty big audience for this. So it's a period piece. There we go. You got that coming up. And then She Said comes out November 18th, and I'm trying to figure out who's in that. I don't remember. But it's a movie that was held back from 2021. Carey Mulligan and Zoe Kazan are in that. And then after that, Bones and All, Devotion, Strange World, and The Fablements all come out for Thanksgiving weekend. That's not a good lineup. There's not a whole lot there. When I look at, Timothy Chalamet, Taylor Russell are in Bones and All. Devotion. Now, that's the movie with the fighter pilots. So that's Christina Jackson, Glenn Powell, Jonathan Majors in that cast. That should be interesting. Then Strange World, when it's known as a big Disney animated film. And then The Fablemans. I don't know what that is, but that is going to be Michelle Williams, Seth Rogen, Paul Dano among those, and Steven Spielberg is directing. I don't keep up on much on the movies that are out and coming out as much, but I try to keep up. Oh, the remake of House Party is coming up December 9th. There we go. Spoiler alert, I talk about December 16th. There's your Christmas love movie. I Want to Dance with Somebody, the Whitney Houston biopic, December 21st, and Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, December 21st. Not much for me to work off of. Like, I'm kind of like, we are scrapping the end of the year, pretty much. But it's not without its controversy, without its criticism. Let's go ahead and talk about the movies we're here to bring up. Blonde, Amsterdam, Don't Worry Darling, and The Woman King. And so I will take the New York Times to give me the review of this movie to see how it was, because it's going to be one of those more of these hard pandering type of reviews that I want to go ahead and take as part of where people are really at with this. So Manohya Dargis reads about this and starts off essentially saying that Marilyn Monroe is an actress of uncommon talent. The director for this movie was interested in examining her body, literally in this case, then getting inside her mind. Now, they mentioned about the real story of Marilyn Monroe did have family tragedies, paternal absence, maternal abuse, time in an orphanage, time in foster homes, spells of poverty, unworthy film roles, insults about her intelligence, struggles with mental illness, problems with substance abuse, sexual assault, the slavering attention of insatiable fans. So then this movie's felt like an exploitation. Now, in this story, they talk about how this is not the first time. Hollywood has always eaten its own, including its dead. And they mentioned the biopic Judy, which Renee Zellweger played Judy Garland near the end of her troubled life. So Blonde is a 3-hour movie, embracing a bleakly familiar trajectory that begins with Monroe's unhappy childhood, revisits her dazzling yet progressively fraught fame, her depressingly abusive relationships, myriad health issues, and catastrophic downward spiral. And so they go into this the movie, of course, everybody has heard it right now. It's based on the 2000 Joyce Carol Oates hefty hardback book, fictionalized account of Monroe's life. She draws from the historical record, but likewise plays with facts, cooks up a menage a trois for Monroe, and channels her ostensible thoughts, including a lurid tryst with the unkind President JFK. And that Oates, according to a critic, Elaine Showalter, says that Monroe was used as an emblem of 20th century America. A woman, Showalter later adds, without much conviction, who was much more than a victim. Well, first of all, even though you want to go after Andrew Dominik, the director, which, okay, I haven't watched the movie. I'm not going to say what it's about and what has been brought up here. I get what they're trying to say about exploitation of a star that was very revealed and, glamorized and looked after. Like it's kind of it's always been, Marilyn Monroe has been a figure of beauty, a symbol of beauty and glamour and all this kind of, there's so much there that you think about that you always hear where it's about screen silence, women that, women that could be, that might be of whichever persuasion they might be, or even, the gay community. Well, they fawn over Marilyn. I can see why. Was never my kind of, she was a very attractive woman. Don't get me wrong, but it was never my thing about the blonde, that, the feel of that, really that blonde, bodacious kind of feel to it. No, not for me. Like even with, Jane Mansfield, I think about it. I'll think about her. And that's another, artist that was also very much, pawned on and really glamorized and exploited as well. The thing is just that it's going to be very triggering for women to go and see this kind of victimization. And when it's not the actual depiction, to go ahead and glorify another woman's writing. This is like another Kitty Kelly who wrote about like the likes of Frank Sinatra and all that, right? And really kind of ingratiated some of the things that were really the negatives on a certain artist. And for somebody who wanted to decide to do this, I don't know if Ana de Armas, how much you could put on her, but they say the performance she made was great. Very challenging. I mean, if this would have been out in theaters, I can imagine there was even more of a feel of where this is all at. But there's a lot of being said about what made Monroe more than just another beautiful woman in Hollywood, her genius. This writer questions if Dominik, the director, had ever actually watched a Marilyn Monroe film, seen her transcendent talent with the brilliant comic timing, the phrasing, gestures, and grace. I am going to watch this movie eventually. I'm going to go and see what it's all about. So they go through and talk about a lot of things in here in terms of the sexualization of Marilyn Monroe. Really just the sexual gratification that they feel like the director's having with this, which he does, I guess, from all the accounts, but I haven't watched it. But they make the point that he keeps peeping up Marilyn's dress metaphorically and not while he tries to make his filmmaking fit his subject, using aspect ratios and switches between colors and black and white, reproducing some of the most indelible photos of her, and now and again employs some digital wizardry, but erasing the divide between the realms. He ends up reducing Marilyn to the very image, the goddess, the sex pot, the pinup, the commodity, that he also seems to be trying to critique. And there is no there to his Marilyn, just tears and trauma and sex, lots and lots of sex. And then he also mentions the fact of how, or this writer talks about, that there's scenes where we're taking us out of Marilyn's vagina twice, once in color, once in black and white, while she's having abortion. So it was obviously making a movie that was going to be definitely out there. It got NC-17 listing, almost 3-hour movie. And it's not as if I see a whole lot of people that are really made a big thing about bringing up Marilyn Monroe in the first place. We all heard about the movie and we're just saying, oh, Anna de Armas playing Marilyn Monroe. That sounds great. Otherwise, no. Now people are going to be subjected to this movie and they are really pissed about it. And I don't know if, first of all, they thought they were going to try to make Marilyn Monroe into some light as for some kind of a feminist like symbolism or something like that. But we're talking about the 50s and 60s at a different time of, movie making, where we know there was a lot of things that were going on in Hollywood that were not right. The casting couch was definitely prominent. And this young girl was definitely brought up into that. But her beauty got her access to so many different, to the heads of state, to powerful people. And it's unfortunate that, nobody was there to protect her, watch over her. She just got caught up in all this. And, we'll see if anything comes of it where people might just realize that if the movie is meant to be something where it does create conversation, talking about women being victimized and traumatized, maybe that's something that's going to be asked about. But what I'm hearing a lot from women that are been reviewing the movie is the fact that they don't like the fact that that's even being portrayed. Like it should not be portrayed at all. I mean, there was movies that we had, plenty of movies we always had these kind of scenes, but obviously they're taking umbrage to it because of the fact that they're taking down to where a lot of women feel like is somebody that they really put up on a pedestal as a symbol of beauty, as a symbol of grace, as this writer says. Marilyn Monroe, they don't like the fact this is being done to her. Okay. That's one of those things that comes out and people are just not happy about that at all. Now let's go to 2 other movies. I'll leave Amsterdam last because that's the one that's coming out, because that's really just getting panned. The criticism is just going crazy for that movie, but we'll go into that in a minute. The next movie is the one I actually saw a little while back, which is The Woman King. I watched last, or was it 2 weeks ago now? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. There was a lot being said about it. And I can at least attest to this movie because I did watch it. So I took a couple of stories off of this to also try to get a good bit of context to what was going on here. Salon put out a story saying that it poses the conundrum of making a great action movie about exceptional killers. But then can the cinematic potential of what these exceptional warriors symbolize overcome the dark reality of history? If you haven't heard about this yet, I'm sure you know that as a 19th century West African kingdom of the Dahomey that is being depicted, a group of all women soldiers defending the kingdom of Dahomey under the king of Gezo. Now, the way history tells it, the Dahomey weren't so much in need of protection from outside threats as it was the other way around. They built their kingdom's massive wealth by capturing and selling other human beings long after the British declared the slave trade to be illegal. So yes, the Dahomey tribe also sold slaves, including black slaves, right? But that was African slaves. So their own people, their own homeland, they went ahead and sold themselves. So they didn't hide the role in fueling chattel slavery, as many critics and fans have explained. No, they did. They did not. So the idea was they were trying to do something where, in the story here, having seen the cost of war and contributing to the suffering, the woman king, or Viola Davis's character, Naniska, recommends that they can sustain their wealth by cultivating and trading palm oil to surrounding territory. So that might have taken a little bit of leisure to the actual story, but I guess that's what they're talking about. Now, here's the point that I make of this movie anyway. If you're someone who loves action movies that use true events as an entry to a deeper narrative and also about surviving trauma, defying misogyny, and overcoming personal torment in the face, along with the ass-kicking then The Woman King is a masterpiece. Right. For me, you have to watch this movie under the realization that, yeah, this is one of those women ass-kicking movies that might not make much sense because at the end of the day, you're like, okay, these women kick every guy's ass. Is that realistic? Okay, when I think of Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, the last Charlie's Angels that Elizabeth Banks directed, and I think of the 355, or if I think what was the mobster movie that Melissa McCarthy was in? What was that? What was that movie she was in where she was one of the, what was the name of that movie? The Kitchen, right? 2019's The Kitchen. Women mobsters. We've seen this for a while. This kind of this depiction of having women, first of all, I don't mind when I have certain movies that are absolutely like the women are ass kicking. I think Jennifer Garner and Peppermint. I think of Zoe Saldana and Colombiana. I try to think what else. Give me like a Lara Croft Tomb Raider. Things like that. Yeah, I'll take it. It's just, the movie was fine. But again, if you're going to really be literal about the fact that, it's not believable, movies are suspending disbelief anyway. You suspend belief, and that's okay. And that's why I was fine with that. But the way it was like it was really over the top. And I was just like, I was amused by it. But I thought the movie was well done. I thought Viola Davis did a hell of a job. John Boyega very much give me like that Antonio Fargas, like that kind of a pimp vibe with him as a king. But it was fine. So the Blade of Freedom, Nanitska proclaims her people to be in a rousing pre-battle speech. The radical side of women being men, senseless in battle, is enough reason for racist, sexist white wingers and misogynistic men of color to team up to slander everyone involved. Well, I will say this, that there were some men, it was a predominantly black audience in the theater, which honestly, I'm fine with that. I mean, I actually kind of miss all the, kind of like all the hood gangster kind of movies, right? Like we had Superfly a few years ago. We haven't had a movie like that in a while. I haven't had a good hood movie in a while. And I like those, like, cause it's always fun to go and watch certain movies that are just, it's made for that urban audience. I love that shit. But with this, it was like, I could definitely tell there were some black guys in the theater, which you could not see from the darkness, where once the movie was done, they came with their girlfriend or their wives or whatever. I saw several guys walk immediately out of the theater after watching the movie, and they were kind of putting a couple of legs ahead of putting some distance between their wives and their girlfriends getting out of the theater. Like they were quick to just jump and get out. So yeah, as this writer talks about, women beating men senseless in battle. But, you come in here and just realize, and listen, we're in a progressive change in movies and how they're being done. It's fine. This right here, I got a problem with it. And so they talk about the significance of the Woman King rewrite differs from that of historic epic. Now, one of the things they talk about the fact is that the Agoji, right? This tribe of female warriors inspired the Dora Milaje, T'Challa's royal guard and Black Panther, but only concerning their battle prowess. And the box office success of Black Panther in 2018 led to Sony TriStar Pictures greenlighting The Woman King. Now, most people don't look to bother to look up the history behind the artistic inspiration, but those who do are going to discover history and all its controversy and mess. And then they end this article by saying that we can hold the brutal truth of who these people are alongside the wish fulfillment of those who want to symbolize. I believe we could do both, appreciating the doors that the success of The Woman King may open to give future filmmakers a chance to tell the stories like it and do even better. Well, the thing is out here, I'll tell you as well, was that the alienation was not so much from what they talk about was, this writer wants to talk about racist, misogynistic, sexist right-wingers. I mean, that's pretty specific to go ahead and say, but to me, I didn't look anything like that in the theater where I was at and thought it was anything like that. I just thought that, even black guys not really kind of vibing with the fact that they see that all these black women with weapons, no guns. They're beating guys with guns, with their swords and their knives and all this stuff. And they're the ones that are able to go ahead and decimate, right? Decimate all of the Oyo tribe, all those pirates and all these different people from like the European slave traders. And I get that part. And I understand the part where like, okay, the slave traders, they're getting caught and they're getting just destroyed by all the slaves. Like, I get that part. Like, yeah. Like, you were hoping, like, so you thought with the movie, you probably think the director and the people behind the movie that were hoping there would be like cheers among the crowd of seeing this attack right here, this redemption, this, vengeance, right? Kind of thing. So, I'm sorry. When they look at this here and they're saying, you know what? We like the way it was done in Black Panther because it wasn't so over the top that we feel like, okay, it's like, okay, so the guys don't have a chance. Like, you just have to absolutely believe that the women are going to destroy and decimate and kick an army of guys like that. Like that's what they're going to do. And with some of the women they had in the Agoji, they were young. Like, we know that a number of the young girls that they feature, they're probably in their teens or early 20s, and they're not that big. They're not that strong. They don't look, like Viola Davis or Lashana Lynch in that movie. They look like they're, they can kick ass. Like, they're legitimately looking like they can kick ass without even needing the weapon. Like, it was like that. So the intimidation factor of those two, yeah, I get that. But then the rest of the Ogoji tribe, it's going to be hard to like stretch your imagination out that much. But as a moviegoer, it's fine because I don't mind suspending a disbelief and a little bit of that outrageousness. Listen, I watch Fast and Furious movies, okay? I can suspend disbelief. I really can. It's not that hard, especially with movies like that, because it's all about family, right? So that's fine. So everybody getting caught up on that, that's one thing. And then there was the boycott Woman King thing, which also came about. And I saw a lot of that. And I was like, whatever. LA Times talked about it, and Viola Davis actually talked about this. And she says that, first of all, I agree with the film's director, Gina Price Bythewood, saying that you're not going to win an argument on Twitter. We entered a story where the kingdom was in flux at a crossroads. They were looking to find some way to keep their civilization and kingdom alive. It wasn't until the late 1800s that they were decimated. Most of the story is fictionalized. It has to be. Right. Okay. And then they talked to Viola Davis's husband, Julius Tennant, who's one of the movie's producers, also talking about the criticism, saying that, quote, it's history, but we have to take license. We have to entertain people. If we just told a history lesson, which we very well could have, that would be a documentary. We don't want to shy away from the truth. The history is massive, and there are truths on that are there. If people want to learn more, they can investigate. And the main point of contention by online critics was the movie seemingly uplifts the women without fully acknowledging that the Dahomey tribe sold other Africans into slavery. And the other thing was the movie that was story written was by Dana Stevens and Maria Bello, who's actually an actress, two white women that wrote the movie. So there is that part they're kind of bringing up as well. It's what it is. Prince Bythewood spoke with the LA Times and says the biggest eye-opener was how much misinformation there is about these women and this culture, given that so much of their history was written from the colonizers' point of view. So it was really about separating the texts that were from that point of view, which were so disparaging and disrespectful, from the truth. And they enlisted historians to consult how and why these women inhabited their noteworthy social roles. So there's that part, okay. Which I get the part of like having a little bit of creative licensing with doing a movie like this, but it's not without its criticism. Again, the next part of criticism we have, it comes from Don't Worry, Darling. It's another movie where there's so much behind this, a lot of backstage stuff on who was originally cast in the movie and moving along. Lukewarm reviews for the movie, but the thriller has become one of the most controversial productions of recent years due to the drama between the film's cast and the director, Olivia Wilde. Originally, Florence Pugh, one of the film's stars, was going to be cast alongside Shia LaBeouf. The actor ended up leaving the project due to tensions between the co-star and the director. And this is what happened. So Olivia Wilde had fired Shia LaBeouf reportedly to protect Florence, because his on-set demeanor, his method acting, came to such an extent that he was being violent. But then LaBeouf came out to deny the statements, posting a video with the director is seen asking him to return to the project, and the comments in the leaked video seemed to suggest that LaBeouf had left the movie due to lack of chemistry with Pugh. Then you had the thing going on where Olivia Wilde, in the middle of things, she, goes on to what was the event, CinemaCon, I think it was, and she gets served papers by Jason Sudeikis, the father of her children, and then she starts dating former One Direction star and now big pop star Harry Styles. Oh wait, she's 38, he's 28. And then Styles was quickly reported as a replacement. He has a lack of acting experience, but he was handed a leading role in a major Hollywood film, so this caused friction and nothing to ingratiate Wilde and Styles to the cat. And Styles, they said, according to a report in an Insider, got special treatment. Favoritism reportedly began to make the rest of the team uncomfortable, especially Florence Pugh, who was not present for numerous press events to promote the film. A lot of criticism behind that. But yes, CinemaCon was where that happened, and she was giving a presentation of Don't Worry, Darling on stage once she got the envelope that she was being served. I'll tell you what, there was also complaints about the salary between Florence Pugh and Harry Styles, that Harry Styles earned more money than Florence Pugh for his work on the film. Then there was the issues between Florence Pugh and Olivia Wilde, that Pugh refused to attend sections of the media tour for the film, has done little to promote it. And at the Venice Film Festival, Olivia Wilde explained that the star wouldn't be attending because she was shooting Dune 2. But then, 5 minutes after she makes that announcement, Florence Pugh makes a grand entrance contradicting Wilde's statement. Oh, watch out. Then there was the part about Harry Styles spitting on Chris Pine, which we all thought that might have happened. But that also had to be debunked as well. So much crap going on with that movie. And for what it's worth, it's the controversy that built the movie up. I really believe that. I don't think anybody was really caring or hurt by the fact that they put the movie out there and they had all this going on. So, yeah, it's had to go with it. Plus, there's just some other things going on about who was depicted in the movie in terms of like some political kind of stuff. And I'm not getting into that stuff at all. I've heard about that too. I don't care about it. So there's that part. These movies, as I'm showing you as an example, they're all suffering from all this bullshit that's going on. And I'm like, wow, these people are just kind of suffering right now with all of this going on. It's amazing. Let's go to Amsterdam. Okay. There's reviews for this movie, and at the moment, I want to look what their Rotten Tomatoes score is right now, because I'm sure people are not saying too much about it, but it's not getting good reviews. At the moment, as I look at the reviews, IMDb gets 6.1 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, it's 33%. And at the moment, the audience has not seen it yet, so there's no audience score for this yet. And not much more is being said about it. But 2 weeks away from the movie, it's kind of hurting right now. Now, with that said, this cast is ridiculous. Christian Bale, Taylor Swift, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Anna Taylor-Joy, Robert De Niro, Rami Malek, Jesus, Chris Rock, Mike Myers, Timothy Oliphant, Zoe Saldana. What a freaking movie, man. You got Michael Shannon in it as well. And everybody else after this, there's not much to be said. But like I said, that's a pretty stacked group of actors and actresses in this movie. And the movie is set in the 30s. It follows three friends who witness a murder, become suspects themselves, uncovering one of the most outrageous plots in American history. And it's set as a comedy. And you know what movie I think about when I think of this movie here, which is the one that I think is going to stand out here, that's going to be very similar to me? Hail Caesar. Remember that movie? That's what I feel like this movie is going to be. It's going to give me like a little bit of, and it's a Coen Brothers movie. Hail Caesar. I feel like it's going to give me that kind of feel to it, where it's like it's built this certain movie, but there's a comedy feel to it. It's very dark. We'll see how it works out. But anyway, the movies come in here, and you're talking about a guy that's put out some really strong showings for movies. Flirting with a Disaster, Silver Linings Playbook, and American Hustle. This is his first movie 7 years since the movie Joy. No matter what, I have to watch this movie because it's such a cast. Such a great cast, by the way. So after they talk about the story, they talk about there's a swerve of the movie toward a ticking clock thriller, a villainous reveal, feeling a bad prosthetics job on a touch-and-go patient, and that Russell's ham-fisted message for peacetime diligence in a divided world regarding the nexus of power, money, and influence plays like an underlying afterthought scribbled into the margins of a script that wasn't being used anyway. So, people are talking about this movie, but they're not saying much about it. There's just this review that's really saying this much. I would like to see there's more. And this is from therap.com, but I haven't seen much more that really stands out. I can look at other reviews and see what they say. The Variety.com also talks about that there's withering reviews and bad buzz for the movie. Now, the movie is bolstering more stars than in the heavens, and it has a budget of upwards of $80 million coming into theaters. Right now, the opening weekend track looks like it should be between $17 and $20 million, according to pre-release tracking, a respectable result and still a lingering pandemic conditions, as rival studio sources believe the notices will take a bite out of ticket sales and word of mouth will depress results. Now, one thing that was also made mention of is that Amsterdam was not featured at any major film festival. So nothing at Venice, nothing at Telluride, nothing at Toronto. But insiders said the film wasn't completed in time for Venice, where backers felt it would garner the best reception. It opted not to appear at Toronto because the gathering fell too late on the calendar to raise its profile. In light of early reactions, the studio's decision to try to reposition Amsterdam as a commercial play and not a critical one may have been a wise maneuver, because they also moved the movie up. They didn't put it in November, they pushed it up to October. See how that works out. The movie was originally going to come out on November 4th, but that would go up against Black Panther, so they're going to just push it up. And this might have been one of those movies that could have been picked up because it was done in the pandemic, where they could have said, okay, should they push this movie to Netflix or somewhere else? Because there were movies coming out at the time, Trial of the Chicago 7, Borat 2, Without Remorse, sold all to the likes of Netflix and Amazon for more money than they could ever be able to reap at the box office, but those talks were abandoned. And New Regency, that's putting out the film, came to believe a major theatrical release presented the best distribution option for Amsterdam. Anyway, Disney's poured tens of millions of dollars into marketing for the movie, including hosting premieres in New York and London. And if all that hype pays off the big opening weekend, it will have been money well spent. But if audiences steer clear of Amsterdam, Russell's next project may not get the same kind of money to realize his big screen dreams. Controversy here. Because there's controversy about the movie not being pushed in or where it was at. The other part of things here. So they have all these things going on for all these movies, all this criticism. It is what it is. This is what they decided to go and do for all this. I'm still looking at other things going on when it comes to Don't Worry, Darling. If I wanted to bring up the other part about the professor from Canada, the one that's been very outspoken and people really go after, Jordan Peterson, but I'm not going to talk about that part. Like, it was reported in Variety, but of course, it's politics. I don't want to get into that. We're just going to jump off of there. But I think I might go see this movie on the weekend. I'm guessing I'll go see it. I don't know what else to do, so I'll give it a shot, I guess. Because I have nothing else to watch. Like, I'll watch that, and then I'll go watch Amsterdam next week. That's what the plan will be for me anyway. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stories I had set up, but we're kind of starting to run out of time here, but I'll try to see what I can get through now. A story came out from Variety about TikTok and how it's influencing music trends, which has been, very much a subject I've been talking about for a couple of years now. Gavin Bridge at Variety talks about how TikTok is one of the most preferred formats for younger consumers in entertainment, particularly music. I can tell you, I've been watching a lot of TikTok lately. It's amazing how much there is. When it comes to social media services used in the past week, ages 15 to 29, 56% use Facebook, 60% Instagram, 51% TikTok. Now, above all these, Facebook is still very much prominent for anyone 30 to 44, 45 to 59, or 60 years old. Among the older demographics, over 30, 54% use Instagram, 38% use TikTok. The TikTok audience goes lower and lower as the age goes on. And TikTok is one of the top three as an entertainment source. Among 50 to 29, 48% of TikTok users, that's the age. 26% are 30 to 44, and the other 16% are over 45. Then they asked the question here in this survey about, I could watch TikTok all day and never get bored. 35%, age 15 to 29, can agree with that statement. 20%, 30 to 44, 9%, 45 to 59, over 60, 4%. And then when asked about short video clip sites for music views, they understand that the average Gen Z music listener is 79% more likely to use short video clip sites for music news than the overall average listener. And that the average Gen Z music listener is 59% more likely to discover new music via short video clip sites than the overall average listener. Now, they take an example of a song from Summer Walker called Karma, released in 2018 as part of her first album. And in the first half of 2022, Karma had a baseline weekly global stream level of 250,000 to 300,000 streams. Then TikTok users created a sped up version of the song, featured in a range of different videos on the platform. And once it reached a viral threshold and drove up global streams, Interscope Records re-released the song as Karma sped up, and saw weekly global streams hit the 2 million mark, peaking at 4.1 million streams. The song would get certified gold, all for a song that was 4 years old and wasn't even a single from the album it was on. And when you put it down in dollars and cents, the value of the average stream on Spotify is 0.0043 cents and 0.0073 cents for Apple Music. So the song, as a result of the baseline streams, it was making about $1,400 a week in revenue. The spike increased it to $22,000 a week. There you go. Anything that encapsulates the influence TikTok can exert on music and content discovery, it is this. While it is impossible to predict what content will go viral, it speaks to a growing trend among younger consumers for autonomy over content choice and discovery. And plus, not to mention, TikTok's trying to definitely go for the search engine optimization engine type of feel. They're trying to become their own search engine, much like Google, Yahoo, or Bing. They're trying to go that route, and it's a very smart move. Adding more into the caption, they're trying to make that happen. And they conclude here saying TikTok's large base among Gen Z and ability to create instant content trends is akin to organized chaos for media companies. Organized because TikTok has a structure and parameters. But chaos is no one can predict what will spike next. The cultural power still wields as a boon for those who do trend and highlights why working with social platforms is key to maximizing audience reach and revenue. Yeah, I like the unpredictability of the counterculture of TikTok. I love it. It's so wonderful. It's one of those things that really just, fascinates me. Plus, how quick, even faster in some cases than Twitter, are you getting news and information and visuals in real time really fast? That is mind-boggling, especially the Hurricane Ian footage that was out there. I will just say this, for those that are out there, yes, I could have been in the brunt of Hurricane Ian this weekend, but that didn't happen. I got lucky. And right now, there is such a point where things have just gone in such a way seeing all the money that had come across, or seeing all of the damage that Hurricane Ian did to the whole community. And just saying, man, wow, I feel awful for the people of Southwest Florida, for Bonita Springs, Fort Myers, Naples, that whole area, Cape Coral, then going into Orlando, then making its way up into St. Augustine and out. And now ready to go ahead and start fueling again to attack up, up in the Atlantic seaboard. By the way, I would make mention of, if you want to, as a fellow Floridian, if you are looking to do anything, the state of Florida is already talking about right now that they would love to recommend people to go ahead and give to the Florida Disaster Fund. Website is volunteerflorida.org. So if you want to make a donation there, go ahead and you can do that right there and see what works for you. So there's that they're going to talk about as well. But all the videos of all the damage and footage of what was going on at Hurricane Ian, I've seen plenty of the news could never give me. And without necessarily the account, with just enough context to understand what it was, works for me. And I'll tell you, I learned so much. And I got such an incredible amount of oversight and just information, input that I wanted to learn about here of what was going on in Florida with this hurricane was incredible. I had to make a point of that. It really was amazing. A couple other stories I want to bring up here. One is about royalties for the musicians out there. I've talked about that plenty on this program. So the Senate, in the United States Senate, they have talked about introducing now the American Music Fairness Act, requiring radio to pay royalties to musicians. I don't think I ever brought this up last week, but I want to bring it up here. So while the 8,300 AM and FM stations pay royalties to songwriters and publishers, they never pay for performers or copyright holders. And so this bipartisan act would rectify the situation by ensuring artists and music creators receive fair compensation for these their songs on AM/FM radio. Will bring corporate broadcasters up to speed with all other music streaming platforms, which already pay artists for their music. Watch out for that. Watch out. The Senate's already getting up there. They can get it to the House, and it gets passed. Imagine what will happen. The legislation will require terrestrial radio broadcasters to pay royalties to American music creators when playing their songs, protecting small and local stations. They fall under $1.5 million in annual revenue. They only have to pay $500 annually. All that going on here, it's something else. And so we'll see what happens with it. Again, there's a lot to be said around here about helping musicians out there, and that would be important if radio would go ahead and pay their part. That does make sense to me. There's a big lawsuit coming out against Meta. We'll talk about that for a quick second. A copyright lawsuit. So Meta says $142 million a music copyright suit that's been pushed on them is so vague they had to try to guess what they did wrong. So the case says 1,000 songs are put on Facebook and Instagram without licenses, but Meta says it hasn't even seen a concrete example. Epidemic Sound filed the case in July, claiming all these songs were out there. There was a motion to dismiss that was filed this past Monday, September 26th. And there's lack of specificity in Epic Sound's complaint, according to lawyers for Meta. So Meta might have to still deal with this anyway. We'll see what happens with it, but that doesn't help much for them at all. I'll take one of the story, and I got a few other ones that I can bring up next week. I'll table them. Just to give you a quick heads up, one of them is about how to get your favorite songs played on the radio. That Fred Jacobs, the consultant in radio, talks about how there's a big issue now with Amazon AMP coming into play and seeing what it's going to do. By the way, they've been putting advertising on during Thursday Night Football on the Prime Video platform to promote it. Now, it's only available for iPhone users, iOS, but I can imagine what's going to happen once they get it out there and people can get their hands on it and everybody can listen to it, much like Clubhouse. If it just becomes a Clubhouse thing and it just kind of fades away, or it becomes something more. So YouTube there's a story that came out that 1/3 of adults pick YouTube as their preferred podcast platform, which is why, for myself, I make sure all my content's up there. YouTube.com/JBRASCO951. Easiest way to find the playlist. Go look for the video section on the bottom of broadcasterspodcast.com. It's there. You can find all the past episodes right there, including when I had the show called Creative Not Corporate. You can find it as well. A Morning Consult survey finds that 1/3 of adults say YouTube is a preferred platform for podcast listening, well ahead of Spotify and Apple. And YouTube's best numbers were among Gen Zs, where roughly 4 in 10 said they prefer listening or watching a podcast on YouTube. Millennials, Gen Xers, and Baby Boomers, 3 in 10 say they like YouTube the most. Very important. Keep that in mind. And also, this Morning Consult poll found out that Gen Z adults are overwhelmingly more likely to use social media than newspapers or online-only outlets for news on a daily or weekly basis, and that they're getting their news from the influencers they follow on these networks instead. When the corporatocracy, these big media giants, they think they're going to be able to continue to go ahead and persuade and move content as they want, it's all about the money they're going to be able to make off of that to satiate their coffers. These influencers, they just make some money, they're happy with it. And if they make quite a bit of money, they're going to be really happy with it. But they're going to perform because they're much more greedy and hungry to make the money more than anything else. That's a lot right there. A lot of info right there to take away here on this edition of Broadcasters Podcast. Thanks for listening in. I appreciate all of you checking this out. Another hour's in. Come back for another Broadcasters Podcast next week. And until then, remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hand.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.